Making Aliyah through a Jewish grandparent represents both a remarkable opportunity and an urgent race against time, as this pathway to Israeli citizenship faces unprecedented political threats that could eliminate it entirely in the near future. Currently, under Israel's law of return as amended in 1970, having one Jewish grandparent, whether maternal or paternal, grants you eligibility for Israeli citizenship. But the political landscape suggests this window may be closing faster than many potential immigrants realize. The current legal framework extends Israeli citizenship rights to the third generation, meaning that if you have one Jewish grandparent, you qualify for Aliyah along with your spouse and unmarried children under 18. This generous interpretation of Jewish connection was deliberately crafted to address the historical reality that Nazi persecution targeted anyone with Jewish ancestry, regardless of how distant or how that ancestry was traced. The law recognizes that Jewish identity and connection to Israel often transcends strict religious definitions, acknowledging cultural, historical, and emotional bonds that span generations. However, the political winds in Israel are shifting dramatically regarding this pathway. Rising Orthodox political influence, combined with demographic concerns about non-halakhic Jewish immigration, has created a coalition of voices calling for significant restrictions to the law of return. Current discussions in the Knesset include proposals to eliminate the grandparent pathway entirely, restrict eligibility to parent-only connections, add religious conversion requirements, or implement enhanced documentation standards that would make qualification significantly more difficult. These aren't theoretical future possibilities. They represent active legislative discussions that could result in concrete changes within months rather than years. The urgency of this situation cannot be overstated. Unlike other immigration policy changes that might be implemented gradually or with extended transition periods, modifications to the law of return could potentially take effect rapidly once political agreement is reached. While retroactive elimination of rights for those already in process seems unlikely, waiting to begin your application could mean finding yourself excluded from eligibility by the time you're ready to proceed. The window for action is now, regardless of your long-term timeline, for actually moving to Israel. Documentation challenges for grandparent-based Aliyah applications are substantial, reflecting both the generational distance involved and the enhanced scrutiny these applications receive. You must establish a clear genealogical chain from yourself to your Jewish grandparent, which requires your birth certificate listing your parent, your parent's birth certificate listing the Jewish grandparent, and comprehensive documentation proving your grandparent's Jewish identity. This three-generation paper trail often involves documents from different countries, different time periods, and different governmental systems, creating layers of complexity that don't exist in closer lineage cases. The challenge intensifies when you consider that your Jewish grandparent may have lived during periods of significant historical disruption. Holocaust destruction, Soviet suppression of Jewish identity, immigration records scattered across multiple countries, and the simple passage of time have eliminated many of the documents that would typically prove Jewish identity. Name changes through immigration, marriage, or persecution further complicate genealogical research, as do language barriers when dealing with documents in Hebrew, Yiddish, Russian, Polish, or other European languages. Proving your grandparents' Jewish identity often requires creative documentation strategies that go far beyond simple birth certificates. Synagogue membership records, if they survive, provide powerful evidence of Jewish community involvement. Jewish cemetery burial records and tombstone inscriptions with Hebrew text demonstrate Jewish identity at death. Immigration records sometimes list religious affiliation or indicate Jewish refugee status. Holocaust documentation through Yad Vashem or other memorial institutions may provide the only surviving evidence of Jewish identity for families affected by persecution. The rabbi's letter required for grandparent-based applications must explicitly address the generational distance and provide compelling evidence for the Jewish connection being claimed. This letter typically requires more extensive supporting documentation than closer lineage cases, including detailed genealogical research, community testimonies about family Jewish involvement, historical context, explaining documentation gaps, and multiple sources corroborating the Jewish identity claims. The rabbi writing such a letter essentially becomes a religious historian, reconstructing and vouching for Jewish identity across decades or generations. Enhanced scrutiny from Israeli authorities is standard for grandparent-based applications, reflecting both the complexity of verification and concerns about fraudulent claims. Processing times are typically longer, additional documentation requests are common, and interviews may probe more deeply into family history and Jewish connection. This scrutiny isn't necessarily adversarial, but it does reflect the reality that proving Jewish identity becomes more challenging and more important to verify carefully as generational distance increases. The generational implications of grandparent-based Aliyah create unique strategic considerations for family planning. Your children, if you successfully immigrate, would qualify for Israeli citizenship as the fourth generation from your Jewish grandparent. However, your grandchildren, the fifth generation, would not qualify under current law unless they have a Jewish parent through another lineage. This means that your Aliyah may represent the final opportunity for your family line to acquire Israeli citizenship through this particular Jewish connection. This generational cutoff adds urgency not just for your own decision-making, but for coordinating with other family members who might qualify. Siblings, cousins, and other relatives who share the same Jewish grandparent should consider applying simultaneously or in coordination, as legislative changes could affect the entire extended family's eligibility. The opportunity for multiple family members to establish Israeli citizenship simultaneously may not exist in the future. Building a compelling application for grandparent-based Aliyah requires comprehensive preparation that begins with thorough genealogical research. Professional genealogists specializing in Jewish family history understand the specific challenges of tracing Jewish lineage through historical disruptions and can often locate documentation that family members couldn't find independently. These specialists know which archives to search, how to navigate language barriers, and how to piece together fragmented records into coherent family histories. The documentation strategy must anticipate potential challenges and provide multiple forms of evidence for each crucial claim. Rather than relying solely on birth certificates or synagogue records, successful applications typically include community testimonies from people who knew the Jewish grandparent, historical research placing the family in Jewish communities, cultural evidence demonstrating ongoing Jewish connection across generations, and professional genealogical analysis tying together various pieces of evidence into a comprehensive narrative. Community support and testimony become particularly important for grandparent-based applications, as they provide contemporary witness to historical Jewish identity. Elderly community members who remember your Jewish grandparent, family friends who can testify to Jewish observance and community involvement, and institutional records from Jewish organizations can all provide crucial supporting evidence. These testimonies help transform genealogical facts into human stories that demonstrate authentic Jewish connection. The timing strategy for grandparent-based applications must balance urgency with thorough preparation. While political pressures suggest beginning immediately, incomplete or poorly documented applications risk rejection and potential complications for future attempts. The optimal approach involves rapid initiation of the documentation gathering process while simultaneously submitting preliminary applications that can be supplemented with additional evidence as it becomes available. Financial planning for grandparent-based Aliyah requires consideration of both the documentation costs and the potential for extended timelines. Professional genealogical research, document translation and authentication, legal consultation for complex cases, and multiple trips for interviews or document collection can create substantial expenses. Additionally, the uncertainty about legislative changes suggests maintaining flexibility in both timing and financial planning. Professional legal assistance becomes increasingly valuable for grandparent-based applications, particularly when family histories involve complex circumstances. Immigration lawyers specializing in law of return cases understand how to present complicated genealogical evidence most effectively, how to address potential challenges before they arise, and how to navigate the appeals process if initial applications face difficulties. Given the potential stakes involved, professional guidance often proves cost-effective, even for cases that initially seem straightforward. The psychological and emotional aspects of grandparent-based Aliyah deserve consideration alongside the legal and practical elements. Many applicants find themselves learning more about their Jewish heritage during the documentation process than they ever knew before, creating both opportunities for deeper connection and potential emotional challenges when confronting family histories involving persecution, displacement, or hidden identity. The process often becomes a journey of Jewish identity exploration rather than simply an immigration application. Long-term planning considerations for grandparent-based Aliyah extend beyond the immediate immigration process to include thinking about integration into Israeli society, potential religious status questions, and future family considerations. Unlike closer lineage cases where Jewish identity is typically unquestioned, grandparent-based immigrants may face questions about their Jewish knowledge, cultural connection, or religious status that require preparation and consideration. The reality of contemporary Israeli society generally proves welcoming to diverse forms of Jewish connection, with many communities and institutions that appreciate various pathways to Jewish identity. The key is understanding that Israeli Jewish identity exists on a broad spectrum, and grandparent-based immigrants often find meaningful places within that spectrum while contributing their own unique perspectives and experiences. Making Aliyah through a Jewish grandparent ultimately represents claiming your place in Jewish history and contributing to Israel's future, regardless of the generational distance involved. While the challenges are real and the timeline pressure is significant, the legal right exists today and has enabled thousands of people to establish meaningful lives in Israel while strengthening their Jewish identity and connection. The window for this pathway remains open, but the urgency of beginning the process cannot be overstated. Those who qualify should treat this as an immediate priority, understanding that the opportunity to claim Israeli citizenship through a Jewish grandparent may represent a historical moment that could close permanently in the near future. The combination of legal eligibility, family connection, and historical opportunity creates a unique situation that demands prompt action, thorough preparation, and strategic thinking about both immediate and long-term goals.